Chapter 58 and verse 1. Here we go. So this is the Lord speaking to Isaiah. Well, actually, I'm going to read in 57:18. I have seen their ways, but I will heal them. I will guide them and restore comfort to Israel's mourners, creating praise on their lips, peace, peace to those who are far and near, says the Lord, and I will heal them. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, which cannot rest. Those waves cast up mire and mud. There is no peace, says the Lord, for the wicked. Now, I want to pause here. In the Psalms, when David is speaking about, like, for example, the wicked versus the righteous, he's talking about Israel, or those who are spiritually Israel, those who are honoring God, versus the heathen nations. This is contextually Isaiah speaking to Israel. So he's not saying like, hey, you guys are golden and God's going to bless you, but all those other losers that aren't Israelites, they're the wicked and there's no rest. He's speaking to Israelites. So he's talking about people in Israel as Israelites, sons of Abraham, by flesh, that are not walking with God. And that's important. So he's saying that there's no peace to the Israelite that doesn't acknowledge God. All right? And he goes from there, verse 58, or chapter 58, verse 1. 21. There is no peace, says God, for the wicked. Shout it aloud, do not hold back. 58:1 is a reference to 57, the end of 57. Does that make sense? So there's a chapter break there, but there's no break in the thought. Shout it aloud, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their rebellion, and to the descendants of Jacob their sins. For day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you have not noticed? So that big introduction is to get to this point. What God tells Isaiah to tell the nation is this. He says, tell them that they're in rebellion as a nation. This is not every single person, but as a nation. You are in rebellion to me. Excuse me. And then he goes on to kind of describe what they're doing. He says, for day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. See, what he tells Israel, you have this outward appearance. You're doing things, right? Like I said, they still had the priesthood during Isaiah. They still had the Ark of the Covenant. The kingdom is divided, the northern and the southern kingdoms, but they still had those things. They still had access, if you will, to go to the temple. But because God was an option and not the option, he says that all the things that they're doing, they're not real. They're not genuine. They're a nation that seeks as if they think he's the Lord. So why is the Lord so radical about idolatry? Why is it like just the Old Testament is filled with just condemnation upon idolatry? And here's the reason. All idols do is serve the flesh. In other words, when we sacrifice to an idol, money, clout, right? Just needing to be whatever, wanting money because I think money will give me security. Money will give me the stuff that I want, so money will satisfy me, right? Or a relationship, this relationship will satisfy me. This career would satisfy me if I just had this. If I'm dealing with stress and anxiety in my life, and I could go to the Lord, but that's hard. That doesn't always seem to work instantaneously. There's effort. When I can just pop on, Amazon Prime or Netflix or HBO Max or, BritBox or whatever, the million of streaming services that we have, I can find, let's just be honest, I can find immediate relief from my stress from Netflix, oftentimes significantly faster than if I were to go and have time with the Lord, right? Isn't that kind of true? Because Netflix is immediately going to engage certain parts of my brain, and I will begin to have a dopamine release when I start laughing or when I find a satisfying, even a documentary. It tickles my brain. It tickles this fallen nature. So I can not go spend time in the Word, and I can find immediate relief. Or I can just go 2 blocks over from the church in my home and stop by the dispensary. and I can buy some weed. And then weed takes about 15 to 20 seconds once you inhale it to hit your brain. So that's going to be, well, aren't half the dispensaries out there called like sweet relief, instant relief? There's a reason they're called that, because if you go today after church and you smoke a bunch of weed, you'll feel good. You will 100%, well, unless you have a reaction to it and then you get paranoid and then it just makes for a funny 911 call. But otherwise, you will feel good, right? So that's tempting for some people. And it's not weird that it's tempting, is it? It's not weird at all that it's tempting. Or I can just go down and buy liquor. Liquor takes a little bit longer than weed, but a half hour into it, if I can get a couple shots down me, everything's going to feel okay. I'm going to begin not to care. I'm going to self-medicate, right? Now, we know that you might get away with smoking some weed once, and you might get away with being a functioning alcoholic or whatever, but the reality is you're never actually dealing with what's causing you the anxiety. You're masking it. It's like driving down the road and like taping over the oil light in your car going, "It's okay, everything's going to be fine." Right up until it's not. And that's the thing about Netflix and weed and alcohol or whatever you want to pick to self-medicate with, eventually your problems will be faster and bigger than your mode of dealing with them. Does that make sense? So the idol always provides for the flesh. It always makes promises to the old nature. You'll be loved. You'll be appreciated. You'll be secure. You'll have everything that you want. Whereas all the promises, especially in the New Testament, those are promises, they're kind of, if you will, spiritual promises to the soul. So if my old nature has these cravings and I can typically instantly relieve them or swiftly relieve them with items, temporal items of this world, so it is with God that it doesn't always immediately relieve me in my flesh, in my body, but He promises that my soul will find relief. Now, what's my soul? My soul is who I am. It's who you are. It's from the Greek word psyche. We get our word psyche. Right? So it's your seat of emotion. It's why you like red or blue, why you're loud, why you're quiet. It's who you are, which is why over and over again, especially like in the Old Testament, there's little, like the Lord loves your soul. His soul was vexed. These different words. Because it's not just a reaction to calm your body, which your brain is a part of, but it's something that calms the soul. So if a soul is at peace, if a soul has joy, who you are on the inside, regardless of bodily reaction to things, then that is a superior and a higher experience, for lack of a better term, not that I'm trying to sound metaphysical, that to find the true comfort that can actually transcend anything that happens in this life. Idols can never soothe anything of eternal value, and it can never promote anything of eternal value. God only does that, right? But as He works in our lives He also says, "I will provide for you food and raiment and these different things." So the difficulty that Israel is having, and it always did have, the difficulty that humans have, and always have had, is that we have our Asherahs, and we have our Baals, and we have our, our Molochs, and then we have our Jesus. And so typically when things really get real, when things are just kind of, disappointing, we're like, well, let's see what Asherah is up tonight. What can I binge watch to make me forget about my paycheck or lack thereof? Right? What can I binge watch to forget about this horrible relationship breakup that I've just gone through? What can I bear? What can I drink? What can I smoke to do that? But things get bad enough, we're like, okay, Jesus, I'm here for real. And I really need you on this one, because these other things that I normally go to didn't really work out for me. And so could you help me now? God hates idols because they're counterfeits and they lead to a life of loss, a life of desperation, a life of emptiness and false satisfactions. And that's not what He wants for us, right? He wants peace. He wants joy, real peace, real joy. Peace that isn't, I hope nothing happens that's bad. That's not peace. Peace that's like, no matter what happens, I'll be okay. Like Jesus said, don't put your trust in man, all right? And don't fear man, who can destroy the soul, or the body, but fear God, who can judge and destroy the soul. It's why he says, it's one of my favorite verses in Luke, where he says, look, he says, hey guys, he's talking kind of the disciples, and he says, here's the thing. They're going to hate you. They're going to torture you. They're going to kill you. And he says, but don't be discouraged, because not one hair on your head will perish. That's eternal. I feel like all those people that were burnt alive for translating the Bible from Latin into Greek, or Latin into German, or Latin, I feel like they lost some hair on their head. I've been to a few burnt corpses in my time, and there's no hair, typically. So what must he be talking about? He's not talking about literally, but it's an eternal commentary. Not a hair on your head will perish. You could be tortured and killed. In an eternal perspective, you don't even lose a hair.